On this slide, I'm connecting our project to government theory of the dramaturgy. Government basically says that life is like a stage. We are always performing, and social media is the front stage where we show the best version of ourselves. And that connects to our survey results because a lot of people say they only post positive things or they limit what they share. So according to government, the front stage is what others see on Instagram or TikTok, and the backstage is where we actually dealing with our real feelings or identity. This helps explain why influencers and regular users create a perfect image online, and it supports our findings about how people manage their digital identity differently across cultures. This slide connects to digital identity and why people choose to share or hide certain things online. Data ownership talks about how we don't fully control the information we post, and privacy is becoming a basic right, not just an extra feature. And we connect this to our survey because some participants say they don't trust influencers or they limit what they share online. And that makes sense. If people feel their data isn't protected, they will become more careful with what they post. This also connects to cultural expectations. In some cultures, people share more openly, and in others, they are more private because of concerns about their data, concerns about trust, and digital footprints. For this slide, I'm using Stuart Hall's theory about cultural identity. Hall says identity isn't fixed, it's shaped by culture, society, and the media around us. And this is perfect for our cross-cultural project because our survey showed differences in what people post. And also on our palette, it also shows what kind of people we each follow and how we see influencers depending on their country or our country, and also how also says identity is something we do, not something we just are. So when people post on social media, they are actively performing identity, choosing what to show and how to present themselves. And this helps explain why our group saw different posting styles between students here in the US and in Dubai. So culture shapes how people express themselves online and how influencers shape their self-perfection.
So this is our cultural comparisons, survey demographics, and who we surveyed. We got about 23 community members that responded to our survey. Most of the responses that we got, most of them were from North America, South Asia, and then a couple of them were from the Middle East. You can see on the graphs here, I have region and gender and age count. I combined them. You can also see that I have an age graph down there, and you can see that a lot of them were 18 to 24. So a lot of young people that we got to survey, and 74% of them were female. So a lot of them were. A similar pattern that I saw in Padlet was the age and the cultural expectations and how they influenced people and how they use their online platforms. This was something that was supported in the research on digital media and youth behavior and one of the resources that we looked at. So this is the cultural posting behavior by age group and the people that we surveyed. I was able on Excel to combine the region and the age group that we had surveyed. So that was pretty cool. This chart that I have here, it shows which age group is believed to post the most and is broken down by region. Across North America and South Asia, you can see that most of the respondents, young adults that were 18 to 25, And then with teens in second place. So you can see a lot in North America, and then South Asia, a lot of them are young adults. Middle East, we didn't get that many surveyed, so you don't see much there. But this matches what we saw on our Padlet, that our younger peers post more often and are more active online. Using the resource and the source that we were supposed to use, using Goffman's self-presentation theory, younger people post more because they are more comfortable managing their online performance. So Goffman's theory says that you use social media as your stage, and it's how you form your identity and how you want to perform. So older adults tend to be more cautious about how they present themselves publicly. A cross-cultural similarity that we did find was young adults consistently dominate social media posting behavior regardless of their region. Social media use across cultures, platforms, and purpose. So what we did here was we combined two of the survey questions, which was what was the most used social media platform, and then why did they use that social media platform. And what we saw was that the most across all the regions and the age groups, Instagram was the most used platform. And you can see on this graph, we used the bar graph so you could see the huge difference between the platforms that they used. And so Facebook was in second, and then TikTok and Snapchat, but they weren't used as much as you can see. And then the primary use was to connect with friends and families or for entertainment purposes. And you can see that in the graph as well. And then third is to get news and information. But looking at Padlet, you can see also that the most followed influencers that we found were for entertainment or to gain information and news. So it correlates really strongly with the two, and it follows the data that we found. So it shows a clear link between platform popularity and the reasons people use them. Users choose platforms that match their interests and their needs. This is culture and online behavior and how cross-cultural differences influence online behavior. With this, you can see that I took two survey questions and I combined them so we could see the data a little bit better. Also, I did bar graphs again because you can see the clear difference in some of the answers that people chose. So you can see that how does your culture affect what you share or don't share on social media? And then how does it make you feel, or do you feel that people in your community act differently than they do online to offline? And what we found here is that 60% of participants keep their posts private. They share mainly with close friends or family. 56.5%, they avoid posting about their relationships or personal matters. And then most users prefer sharing content that focuses on positive achievements. Participants also, they noted that they act and behave very differently or somewhat differently online compared to offline. And then in Padlet, cross-cultural differences shape online behavior. So UAE individuals and students, they often keep their posts private or avoid controversial topics. I saw that a lot of them just talked about people that they follow so they could get news or entertainment. USA individuals, they tend to post more freely. And so you can see that the data and the observations suggest that cultural norms shape online behavior, and they influence what and how and with whom people share content. Trust and emotional impact of social media. You can see here that I have two graphs, and I combined how much do you trust the information that's shared by the influencers on social media, and then how does this social media affect your mood and emotions. I thought that these would be really great combined. So in influencer trust, the participants that we surveyed mostly were neutral or somewhat distrustful of the information shared. So they weren't completely distrustful, they were just somewhat. Social media had a significant impact on their moods. Most of the participants in our report felt happy and entertained, while some also found the content motivating. And then at the same time, exposure to idealized posts created pressure to compare themselves to others, and then this would lead to stress and anxiety. So looking at Padlet, when we did our posts, people followed influencers who inspired them, such as makeup artists or educators. They remained aware that content is often filtered or exaggerated. And then this reflected how cultural identity influences trust and emotional reactions online. And then this demonstrates the close connection between trust in influencers and the emotional responses to social media.
For the influencer and feed analysis for this presentation, where we linked theories and trends to culture, we find that many of our findings from the Padlet influencer wall and our survey results coincide with the findings of McKenzie and Manago in the 2022 article of Culture and Digital Media in the Adolescent Development. We assess this by comparing and contrasting the different influencers followed by people of different cultures and understanding their social media patterns. In North America, we found that the influencers they follow and the influencers themselves, we found that there's a noticeable concern about online comparison and their mental health impact. We found this through our survey results, and this idea is heavily supported by McKenzie and Manago in their article, where they quote, blame social media for narcissism in the USA and greater preoccupation with superficially and external validation among young people. There also happens to be a more openness about screen time and online comparison to look a certain way, which is supported by McKenzie and Manago in their article, where they claim college students in the USA exemplify how mobile phones have increased the norms for perpetual communication, creating new pressures that promote dependence and satisfaction with close others, but also feelings of overdependence and dissatisfaction. In South Asia, we also find that the importance of privacy and achievement based content is very heavy, and they also happen to be the most influenced by family expectations and cultural or religious norms in this region. And they also were the second most emotionally affected region by social media, according to our survey. In the Middle East, we found that adults may post differently from teens, and privacy is a very strong concern. They tend to avoid discussing controversial topics and sharing personal life posts. The Middle East was the least affected emotionally by social media, is what we found through our survey results. And we also found through research that it is claimed that more time adolescents spend online in the Middle East, the less time they spend with their parents, and the purpose of adolescent internet use matter where family conflict is concerned.
Examining the differences and similarities in the cross cultural insights was probably the most entertaining part of the project, the most interesting for sure. Looking at similarities with the Padlet, we see that we really focused on entertainment and personal interests for who we follow. And 4 out of 5 of us mentioned someone that we followed for beauty tips or advice. And most people actually shared the profiles to the Padlet using Instagram, which actually I think was up there right with Facebook as one of the top social media platforms used. And then we all really found something that represented future goals or personal growth or knowledge that we were interested in. So that is pretty cool. And then as far as the survey goes, the main thing that everyone across the globe uses social media for is for family and friend connections. And we also found that the younger communities were definitely more engaged or believed to be more engaged than the older generation, which I am probably a part of in this group. And also, it was pretty interesting that there was a lack of trust for influencers. That was a similarity. And I mean, we see that influencers are leading and making tons of money. So, very interesting. Of course, as there is with every group of people, there was obviously some differences between us in our small group and then from the data that we collected with the survey. As far as the Padlet goes, I really feel like the American University of Sharjah students had more intellectual influencers with following people for math skills or for in depth science and even politics. Those are definitely things that I would not be following on social media, sticking to that entertainment piece. But the AUS students definitely were more heavily focused on intellectual influencers. The other thing that I wanted to point out for a difference is I'm the oldest member of the group by quite a bit. And two of my references on the Padlet wall were from TikTok, which is supposed to be the up and coming thing. But yet at almost 41, I was the only one to reference TikTok. So that's an interesting difference. And then as far as the survey goes, we found out that North America is a bit more laid back and less formal, and we're more comfortable posting personal life content, engagements, babies, just things about our life. Whereas in South Asia and the Middle East, they're much more private with their personal life and don't tend to post a lot of personal information. Um, Also, North America is most emotionally affected by social media and compares lifestyles more. And that could be because we are in a nation of I see it, I want it, and I want it now. And I think that when you're comparing like that, you can really affect your mental health. I think looking at the big takeaways overall, starting with our Padlet, is that, no matter where we're from, we all have role models and we're all looking for things that bring us joy or inspiration. And we want to be motivated and we want to follow people that have similar interests and are like minded. And with the survey, we really realized that social media does not have age restrictions, and interestingly enough, everyone pretty much claims to visit social media daily, but they say that they're rarely posting. So, is the majority of the posting coming from influencers who we don't trust? And also, interestingly, social media is not closing the gap cross culturally. At least that's how people are feeling. They think that there's actually more misconceptions by having social media across culturally. And then one of the final takeaways, which I found to be pretty interesting, is that everyone who took the survey mostly claimed that they felt that they were authentic online, that they were themselves. But when asking about others, they thought that they were not. So it's interesting to claim one thing, but to believe something else about everyone else.
As we wrap up our project, we wanted to take a step back and reflect on why these findings matter globally, not just within our own communities, but in terms of how people see each other online worldwide. One of the biggest takeaways is how universal social media really is. Everyone is using it, and everyone is shaping some versions of themselves through it. So that means digital identity has become a worldwide language of sorts, but it's a language where people only show the filtered and curated version of themselves. And when that's happening across cultures and countries, it affects how we truly see one another. Another thing that stood out is the level of uncertainty people feel about what they see online, especially with influencer content. Even though influencers have a huge global reach, people don't necessarily trust them. And that reflects a huge global issue between what's real and what's not. And that's why digital literacy isn't just a personal skill anymore, it's something everyone needs, no matter where they live. Another reason why these findings matter globally is because they show just how much cultural values shape the way people use social media. Different regions have different expectations around privacy, what's appropriate to post, and how openly they express themselves online. When all these different styles mix together, it is easy for messages to get misunderstood and interpreted differently in the way they were actually intended for. However, our project also highlighted something important. Even with all these differences, people around the world share a lot of same experiences online, such as wanting connection, feeling the pressure to present themselves in a certain way, and trying to navigate the constant flow of content. These shared feelings remind us that we're dealing with the same digital world, just from different angles. And this is why research matters. It helps us think and
brainstorm on how to create spaces that are more inclusive and culturally aware. It helps us understand each other's online habits and values and helps us accommodate and communicate respectfully, reduce misunderstandings, and make global interactions healthier and much more meaningful.